本当？見えないでしょ？どこにいるのかな？見えないよ。
What's good, Internet? It's October 4th, and you are listening to Waypoint Radio, episode 513. I'm your host, Rob Zachney, and I'm joined by Ricardo Contreras.
Hello.
Patrick Klepek.
Hi.
And Renata Price.
Howdy.
So, we're coming back from a weekend, and over that weekend, some news broke, or at least someone broke some news from I guess no longer inside ZAUM, more like from very much outside ZAUM.
Is that how we pronounce it? I've never had to actually say it out loud before.
Well, the slash makes Zaum impossible, right?
I say Zaum.
Yeah, Zaum. Zaum.
Zaum.
That's a much cooler way of saying it than ZAUM. So I accept Zaum as our new way of saying
Zaum.
Pat, you want to explain what sort of set off this news cycle and where things stand now?
Yeah, it's a little messy. Disco Elysium, obviously a game much liked here at Waypoint and much liked in many other places, and including had that really great moment at the Game Awards. When you get shout outs to Karl Marx on the stage of the Game Awards, a game is built a little different. And so that game was not just a critical success, but enough commercially that that's going to transform the culture of any studio. And so we may be seeing some indications of that over the weekend. There was a Medium post from one of the developers. Someone else may have to explain the clarity for me on this. There is a culture. What is the cultural?
So, there are two organizations.
Ren, hold on. I'm getting our Disco Elysium expert. We are patching in now. Ren, take it away.
There are two entities in place here. Zaum Studio, the game development studio, which has investors and like a finance board, blah, 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 is a company. And then there's Zaum Cultural Collective, which is a loosely organized group of artists with a coherent ideology and like mission statement.
Is it the entire
No.
all the developers that made the game?
No. Not all of the developers who made the game, to my knowledge, but it is the chief creatives. So the we're talking composers, we're talking the novelist who wrote the original game and who was writing the sequel, and who also wrote a novel in Estonian that is being translated into English right now. That was one of the projects of the Cultural Collective, was translating the novel that was written by the Disco Elysium writer set in the same universe into English. And from what I understand, the people who left Zaum Studio did so involuntarily, as it says in the little release. And then it is a voluntary dissolution of the Cultural Collective, which is basically them going like, all right, cool. We want to keep working together probably, but this thing we're doing called Zaum, we cannot fuck with it anymore. After we were ousted from the studio. And the direction that it's going in is not compatible with our core beliefs. And so Cultural Association gone, chief creatives of Disco Elysium gone from the game studio.
And to be clear, that is, so the person who set this all off was Martin Luiga, posting on Medium, but Robert Kurvitz, Helen Heinper, and Alexander Rostov apparently are also out at the studio. Yes. And as I understand it, they are regarded as like they were the leads on Disco Elysium.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and there have been implications in a couple of follow-up tweets that a lot of it, or some of it, was on account of business practices and intended strategy for the sequel to the game being completely incompatible with those chief creatives and them pushing back against it. And the suspicion is that they were fired for pushing back against a different path for the series to take, or at least that's what Luiga suggests.
Yeah, unfortunately, the lack of details here make it really, like in a broader sense, not surprising that a game that becomes a commercial success that I mean, you look at Disco, it's like a creative miracle that it works as well as it does. You know, it doesn't make a lot of sense that a game like that even really happened. And so color me shocked that the moment more money becomes involved, this becomes a more difficult thing, like a balancing act to achieve, when you are also talking about a scale, scope, money, all increasing. Like, it is just, those are tensions that are going to be at odds with, especially if the folks chief creatively involved wanted to, you know, like stick very firmly to whatever their vision was for the future of this. Those are natural tensions that I'm not super shocked that it broke.
Yeah, they have also said that the sequel could still come out. Per the person who dissolved the cultural collective.
I would bet good money it comes out.
Yeah. He was like, yeah, it might come out. It might even come out the way we intended it, but it will be additional years before it does so, which is unsurprising. That's what happens when your chief creatives are ousted from your company.
But it's just like when you get details like involuntarily, and then we're getting into hearsay and suspicion on Twitter. It's a little bit like when we were trying to pick apart the Rockstar thing before we discovered it was most likely allegedly a 17-year-old hacker. Is the lack of details. I'm not trying to, there's a good reason to think that these developers are probably, in the right, but with the lack of details does make it sort of purposely muddy in a way that makes it difficult to parse what happened, because also just like sometimes creative teams fall apart, and that's what I mean. Like where Disco Elysium is like a minor, like an incredible miracle that it happened. Like sometimes shit just happens, and so
this is the thing is like some of what I saw over this weekend like was a real collective anger over this, including from like some people that I suspect should probably know a bit better about like how cut and dried these things tend to be, because ultimately like nobody knows what happens inside of a workplace. Like they're incredibly complicated like dynamics, and that goes double when you're talking about like a creative workplace. Like you could tell me that these folks like if you told me that like Zaum had a toxic founder culture, that as the studio was growing, we're not letting anybody into the circle, and we're clearly like unready to like be part of a growing team, and like work collaboratively on a follow-up game. If you told me that, I'd be like, yeah, that totally tracks. If you told me these folks are like the geniuses behind Disco Elysium, and the money people just got sick of dealing with them and wanted like their more pliant employees to take the project over and kick these people out, I'd be like,
add combat,
that totally
right?
tracks.
Like all of that is very believable,
right? And here's the other thing: multiple things can be true, and this
usually
like,
is.
Right, and that's the other thing that like we often don't know what is the secret sauce behind like a great creative achievement and what is not. We like to think that we'd like to think that good works that we enjoy are also virtuous works made by people who are good employers, but good collaborators, etc. But we really have no idea. And occasionally you'll have people like trying to make the argument that good process produces good outcomes, that good culture produces good outcomes. We hope. Ultimately, I think like in those cases, we hope that all those things are true, but we have ample evidence that like, good, like ethical, compassionate companies and people can produce great work, and they can also produce absolute shit. And the reverse is also true. And so when I look at this, like, I understand why people are really skeptical of whatever is happening at Zaum, but also I don't know. The fact that the funny thing that even that in his follow-up tweets that Ren alluded to, we sort of acknowledged that they might be fine. Like the people that are left behind there might do a great job. We have no idea. Mm-hmm. It certainly indicates that it is not as cut and dried as take your vision and hit the bricks, get lost. We really have no idea. And I'm not saying people shouldn't be skeptical, but I'm very wary of rushing to judgment about like what we think happened here.
Well, hopefully it turns out if it happens, hopefully, you know, when things like this happen, the best you can hope for is also the team that is left behind that is trying to move forward with the project for whatever reason, whether it's because they believe in it or don't have like a readily available option to switch off the project. You hope that they're able to put together something that they can be proud of. And I don't know. I'll be curious to see like the messiness of this does suggest to me that we will hear more about the messiness in the future. When you use a term as purposely vague as involuntary, as opposed to saying fired, or like there are words that are more specific. Involuntary leaves so much room for interpretation, which if you're being more cynical, like is the purpose. Like these are writers. They know they are using words on purpose. And it may be for justifiable aims. That could absolutely be the case. But let it be known, we praised a game for its excellent nuanced writing, and then they're writing blog posts and tweets using those same skills. Let us be clear that those arrows can be aimed in many different directions for different reasons. But as for like where that falls, I'd be super curious to know. But like as is often the case, it's very rare that we actually find out what the true nature of what's going on at the studio. If you know, my signal number is yada yada yada.
Or just put it on Medium.
You could put words anywhere.
Dueling Medium posts.
No one's gonna stop you if you put those words out there. We'll read it.
It's true.
Sadly.
So having said all that about the unknowability of business and who knows what the future holds, Patrick, what does it mean that Fandom acquired Giant Bomb at all?
Man, hopefully, I don't know. Hopefully not worse. I think that is usually. So yes, Fandom, who already, what they run, what is it? What's the wiki website, right?
Fandom.
Well, I mean, they run a million.
It's called
wiki
Fandom,
websites.
isn't it? Isn't it just...
Right. Yeah. Okay. I guess that's what I was trying to.
Yeah.
Fandom itself is like a giant sprawling, like community wiki thing.
I guess Wikia might be the thing that you're talking about.
Do they also own Wikia?
I think they subsumed Wiki at some point, but the website is just called Fandom.
That's why I was. That's where I was getting confused. Yeah. Apparently, last week they acquired a number of websites, and including Giant Bomb, Comic Vine, which was also part of the Whiskey Media back when I was back with Giant Bomb before there was a sale to CBS, and various different websites got sold to different parts. Like Giant Bomb and Comic Vine went to CBS. Tested went to the what was it? Somewhere else. Anyway, there's a whole those sites got kind of like sold off to a bunch of different places. And yeah, I mean, they're like Giant Bomb is just acknowledging it this morning because the news just came out. But they've been sold from CBS to Red Ventures, which based on the musings I had heard over the years was not necessarily a great fit either. But it is the nature of being at a media company that you expect you are going to get sold, and then it becomes a question of, can the entire staff survive that transition? What is at least encouraging for the folks at Giant Bomb, who obviously I'm closest with, having worked there previously. Everyone, like, their titles transferred, their salaries transferred, everyone's employment status transferred. None of that is assures that is what things will be 6 months from now. But frequently that transition is messy right from the get-go. So that is at least a encouraging sign for people to be able to keep doing what they're doing. But I mean, look, like the reality is, I get a ping from like a Google alert at least once a month where Vice is in talks with XYZ with some sort of rumor about a buyout or a merger or what was the big one last year? SPAC. That was the big one that kept coming up with Vice over and over again. And in this job, you just sort of expect, once you are part of a large media company, you might just be hot potatoed to another large media company. And all you can kind of really do is cross your fingers and hope either they don't know what to do with you and ignore you, which you can get by, maybe not have resources, but get by, or hopefully they understand what you're trying to do and trying to help you accomplish it. So that's certainly what I'll be crossing my fingers for all the folks at Giant Bomb and everyone else that got acquired in that. There was a bunch of other websites.
Yeah, it certainly seems like I think a lot of us are skeptical of change in general because it's so rarely for the good.
Right.
But the Red Ventures situation seemed untenable, right? Like this, that seemed like a situation that did need to end one way or another. So, maybe this is into the fire, but certainly Red Ventures was a frying pan.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the nature, it's just, I don't know, this will be better. It might be worse, but hey, reset the clock. Hopefully another 6 months before I have to worry about my job again. That's usually the time currency that this stuff works at. You move over and you got about 6 months before things get stressful and hairy again. But Giant Bomb's made it through at this point a number of these transitions, and that new staff over there has been doing some really cool shit. So
yeah,
I'm hoping that the folks there will find value in that and allow them to keep doing that.
Yeah. I suspect like a lot of the cynicism about it probably does stem from the fact that there was, I feel like a few years ago, we haven't talked on the show about, I don't know, the way the enclosure movements that have happened across the internet, but fan wikis were and are like a beautiful thing. Right. But Fandom is one of the companies that really did sort of privatize all of
commercialize
that.
It.
Yeah, exactly. And also make the experience worse, right? Like there's also no
by all accounts, that's what people are so worried about, especially with Giant Bomb, which is itself was founded as a database / wiki, sort of like data repository, alongside a games sort of like editorial website. And it's like, oh no, if Giant Bomb was to get fandomed, in terms of its design, that would be absolutely for the worst. Part of what's been incredible with Giant Bomb over its many years is that it's managed to maintain that part of the website, which is for a long time, Giant Bomb's database was underpinning Twitch. When you were looking up games that you were playing, associating that tag for a stream, that was coming from Giant Bomb's database until, they got their own sort of stuff set up. But
this is that's a part that I've always I will need to have explained to me, I think, slowly and clearly, because I was listening to Nextlander a few months ago, and they're talking about back during the CBSI acquisition, the tech base went one place, and then the content went to CBSI. Their bespoke tech was pretty valuable and was not part of that acquisition for
correct. I think we had to rebuild. There was a big Giant Bomb relaunch, which essentially we kept, if I recall correctly, we kept a number of the coders, and folks came over, and that essentially had to. I mean, for them, if I remember that era correctly, they really enjoyed this part because it was a chance to essentially redo all the work you'd done before with all the lessons that you'd had before. So the stuff got sold, but then also you're able to do kind of a 2.0. And so there was a big Giant Bomb move the switch to bring the database over. I think I remember us doing a big live stream about that at some point. So that was essentially the pitch on Giant Bomb in the early years was the editorial is the attraction that gets people to a data set and a technology that you could commercialize, and essentially alongside the subscriptions, that's how you would have a business.
Right.
It's rarely that simple.
We will find the fandom that has a widely used reference page and such. We will just buy the reference page,
right?
Cover it in ads, and we will generate no content. And sort of rake
that
in,
would be
rake in the money.
Rob. Wow, way to describe an apocalyptic scenario for the website Giant Bomb.
Yeah. But that's the thing. I wonder if that database would have interest enough to a fandom to make it worth all the bad will and the hassle.
They're just a data. At this point, Fandom is mostly just a data acquisition company, right? They're just hoovering up. So You're right. Like maybe it's not necessarily worth it.
We wouldn't even need to do this if Wikipedia just opened the floodgates for fictional universes and esports, and we could all just be in Wikipedia, and people wouldn't be like, "Is this really relevant?" Yes, it is. Yes, it is. We need to know about who this character is in Star Wars. Thousands of people need to look up the history of this little character and their appearances in Dark Horse and the EU novels. That's where we need to get to. Because I remember this like there's a wave when I would cover esports. One of the things that's always kind of there's Liquipedia, which is sort of your indispensable like reference page for like the history of esports stuff. But like one thing it didn't cover there were games it did not cover extensively. And so you would have fan wikis doing that work elsewhere. And it was like, there was a period of years there where it was just like, you kept having splinter factions breaking off, being like, a bunch of assholes took over our fan wiki for the history of our esport. And we're like ruining the site and plastering ads. And also nobody was seeing any money on it. We're going to make a pure, simple for the fans, like reference page that just like, it's in it for the love. And then, a year later, you'd hear they got acquired, or once again, the people in charge were like, we can make a lot of money for ourselves off this. With the effect that, you end up with, you end up with like really no great reference pages, to visit, except ones that, just are miserable, and slow browsing experiences. But yeah, fingers crossed for everyone involved in that acquisition. Hopefully they don't mess with the content side too much, and it's just a transfer of ownership to an owner that will have a slightly better clue of what to use.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the best spin you can give on it is that at least they are interested in the data, which is like a huge part of what that website is. And maybe that, I don't know, maybe some way that allows them to stay on stable footing going forward. If their previous owners just sort of looked at this weird subscription website and went, I'm not sure what to do with this. I seem to be I'm making a pattern of doing this, Rob. I keep finding me my jobs like that. What am I doing?
You're working in this era is what you're doing.
Yeah. I think, that's the part of the thing is like getting into the media industry right now as someone who is very new to it, is that like there was a day a few weeks ago where I was like, oh, I wonder if I could like help people out, and then immediately like there were layoffs at like half the places that I worked previously, and I was like, cool, I'm deleting that. Don't do this. It's basically jumping from sinking ship to sinking ship, and sometimes you get to the sinking ship and you're like, Jesus, I hope this ship sinks, and other times you get to the sinking ship and you're like, oh, this is a really cool ship, and you have no way of knowing.
Too bad it's sinking.
Yeah, exactly. You have no fucking way of knowing.
They're all sinking. That's the problem. It's just a matter of how many holes have been plugged, and if you can notice it day to day.
So Patrick, there's one last like quick blip I wanted to hit, which is that has the time already come for a Horizon Zero Dawn remaster?
Yeah, there's some really credible reports coming out of Gamatsu and some other folks that, well, apparently Gamatsu alleges that there is just like a document full of a bunch of announcements that some people are just sitting on, and which I presume will then come out probably by the time we publish this a podcast. But one of them is that there is a Horizon Zero Dawn remake / remaster. It's unclear exactly what the scale of that is. It could be, I suppose, as simple as just hey, we're porting this properly to PS5 with an uncapped frame rate and runs at 4K sort of thing. But it follows a model in which Sony just did with The Last of Us. And at this point, is if this holds up, and there are lots of indications to suggest that it will, that it's a pattern of Sony very quickly revisiting existing releases and releasing them as a full-fledged product with some relatively minor technical upgrades. I mean, The Last of Us did some real work. I don't want to diminish the like that. That looks gorgeous. I don't know if it's $70 gorgeous, but it's a really well done update. And it seems like more broadly tied to Sony's goals going forward, which as like Last of Us has a TV show coming out next year. Horizon has a TV show in development at Netflix. No idea how Netflix, famous for doing very expensive things that look cheap, is going to do a CG dinosaur show. I have no idea how they're going to pull that off. They have a Twisted Metal show that just wrapped up production, and the rumors are that there is a Twisted Metal game also in production. I would take a Twisted Metal Black update. That game was sick. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense from a marketing perspective, but it certainly introduces new wrinkles in what was established by The Last of Us of at what point, like, when are we leaving games behind, letting games become like part of the generation they were a part of, the tech they were a part of. I don't know. It's just a lot of really interesting questions about what does it mean for a game to age, because Sony seems to very quickly want to bring it back to the forefront in a way that other companies don't do nearly at the pace that they are currently structuring things.
I will say, like, it on the one hand seems a little ridiculous to me because the game isn't that old and the PC release was really good. But then on the other hand, like, having just seen MK play them both like back to back, I kind of get it. Like, it seems less preposterous to me than it would have if I were coming to this without that frame of reference. But like, Forbidden West does so completely seem like, yep, and here is what we were shooting for the entire time as like a fulfillment of what the direction was. That, like, Horizon Zero Dawn looked great, and like, does it need this? No. Could it benefit from it a little bit? Would it be? I think
I think some of the issues, like, is some of the precedent, like, Xbox has sent of, like, hey, you bought a new console, it runs it better. We'll find ways to just have it run better. Yeah. And you'll get that as a premier benefit of just a thing we're going to do for you because the hardware affords it. Whereas Sony's thought is, well, we'd love to charge you $70 for it. So I am with you. Like, if I had not played the original Horizon, why wouldn't I want to play that, like, in the best possible fidelity? It doesn't seem like jumping Zero Dawn from PS4 to PS5 at, like, 4K uncapped frame rate. You're not, like, betraying how the game looks. You know what I mean? Right. Like, it doesn't feel like it's an artistic betrayal as much as it just makes the existing thing run better. I think the question becomes, like, because of it's almost is pretty closely connected to how Sony is choosing to operate as a company, which is we do these really big games that are big and expensive, and so we have to charge you $70, even if it's just a recent game that we released across the span of time, because there's no other way to justify our business model than to get you to pay $70. Of course, at the end of the day, if people pay $70, they'll pay $70. And my guess is The Last of Us did pretty well, and probably sort of. Though like
I am not sure Horizon is in that Last of Us tier. No. In terms of, like, willingness to get people, like, hop back aboard, it's
more, like, popular than you think, but not as popular as Last of Us is what I would say.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that the odd thing about Horizon is that, like, the people I know who are big into Horizon would have no interest in getting the kind of remake or remaster that that Sony does, right? People who play The Last of Us people who are big into The Last of Us, like deep into The Last of Us, will be like, oh yeah, I want the higher fidelity version. The people I know who have finished Horizon and liked that game and were excited about it, just want to play the new one as opposed to.
But I think, like, so if you look at the most recent data point of Cyberpunk 2077, a game that I am now very close on the edge of, I think I want to finally play that game. Like, too, Dad's Patrick. Day Off,
I'm right 2 might be
Cyberpunk 2077. Except for the anime is fucking sick. And anyway, like, that game broke its like concurrence on Steam, outpaced The Witcher 3. The Witcher itself being a series that benefited from having a TV show that got really popular on Netflix. And, Cyberpunk these are like really good evidence of essentially justifying Sony's thought going forward of, I don't think they care if the Horizon heads want to play the remaster. Their thought is, when that is trending on Netflix's like bar, like big on Netflix this week is Horizon for 2 or 3 weeks. Well, they're gonna then And the thought, and I believe one of the I think this was a rumor at some point that there might be some sort of like cloud integration with Netflix at some point. Where like, what if instead of buying that on PlayStation, you could pay extra within the Netflix app and then start playing Horizon Zero Dawn through like the now pretty decent cloud streaming tech. And so I think their thought is we want the best looking version of this at that point, old enough game that people may have higher expectations after they've watched the TV show. And then that benefits the whole cycle of things in a way that is ultimately cheaper than producing new content.
I don't know. Given what Netflix productions can achieve, maybe you want to show them the older version of the game and not a remaster.
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to do that show. It doesn't make a lick of sense to me. The scale of the money you would need to do a Horizon show properly is just they're only all they can do is just not show the creatures. Like every time you show the creature, it's just you're gonna need money on the screen. But I'm really close to wanting to play Cyberpunk. I don't have time for it, so that is very much like, hey, people seem to like those Elden Ring streams. Want to watch me play 8 hours of Cyberpunk for 2 months? Because that might be on the horizon pretty soon. Can I sneak that in before Destiny?
Did you
in January?
I'm fascinated by it.
Did you say that you had a save already? Or did you not start at all?
I played like an hour of that game on like 4 different platforms to see how the tech stuff worked out. Rob, you played that from start to finish, right? Yeah, you reviewed it. And then the response was so that my thought was I'll just wait until this game hits true 1.0. Like I'll give it however long it's going to take until it's in a better place. Say what you will about CD Projekt Red, and plenty of proper criticism should be handed towards, especially their management and how they handled that game's development and crunch, and that is all true. But it's also a studio that supports their stuff and will keep working on it. And so I was pretty clear the project would continue and that there'd be a moment where not it would become, I don't know, a masterpiece or whatever, but it would be like, all right, this is what this game is. Like, it's a good time to come in if you want to examine it for what it is. And I mean, I adored Witcher 3 and especially the Blood and Wine expansion so much that I've wanted a reason to come back to actually play Cyberpunk. And so now it really feels like if there was a time, there's DLC coming out early next year, like now is the time to see what that whole thing is about.
I've certainly been tempted to see how it's developed since it came out. But like for me, there's a weird thing here where I'm like, it was... the negative reaction to it was like also outsized to what the game was. And so I'm also like, I'm skeptical of the, like, if there's Cyberpunk is good now. I suspect it's very much, it's what it was, like warts and all. But what it is not dominating the story at this point is tech issues on like around poor optimization. Which did seem way more than in our neck of the woods, we heard way more content critique. But it did seem like what gut shot that launch was the quality of the release.
Yeah, bad storytelling has not forced Sony to take it down from the storefront and start issuing refunds.
The line that I will always remember from that game, which I'm sure is still in there, is the phrase, "That wound looks pizza wreck awful." And I've been thinking about that line for, I would say, the last year and a half. And I don't think I don't want them to fix that line.
Listen,
doesn't
need fixing.
Doesn't need fixing. Leave it. Only a coward removes the phrase "pizza wreck awful."
Yeah, exactly, Mina.
Thank you, Mina.
I think that was dog talk for Patrick. Yes, you should play Cyberpunk.
So with that, let's take a quick break, and we'll be back in the second half of the show to talk about some games we've been playing. All right, Kato.
What?
I've been burned before.
Why did you say it that way?
I've been burned before.
Hold on. I played a different. I played a different game. If you want to pivot really quickly, I didn't put it into the last one.
Let's let no.
All right,
Wow, you're gonna make him do. He put look, Kato. At any point, you could have gone into a sauna and removed this.
I should have. Well, it's fine. It's fine. We can talk about it.
Pokemon Unite.
Yeah.
New map makes the game completely different. Kato, do you feel, now that you've had a couple days to think on it,
Yeah.
do you feel it makes the game completely different?
Yeah. I don't think that's an untrue statement. It's just maybe a shorter hit than I originally thought. But for the longest time, for the first year of its existence, Pokemon Unite had this issue where it felt like a large portion of the 10-minute match time, like easily 7 minutes of it, kind of didn't super matter. The way that this is set up is kind of in a traditional MOBA sense. There's 2 lanes and a like jungle area, and in the lanes there's these little score points where you're supposed to dunk points, and after a certain amount of points are gone, you destroy that score zone. And whoever has the most points at the end wins. So you would expect, as the game like progresses, you should be scoring a bunch, because that's ultimately the objective of the game.
Yeah, I feel like you'd want to be like neck and neck between the teams, like accumulating the points.
It didn't fucking matter. It absolutely did not matter, because at minute 2 things happened. First, the every point suddenly became worth double. And a Zapdos, a legendary bird, appeared in the center of the map, and just you would if you would kill it, it would give you instant scoring, which basically meant any of the points that existed, you would go up and you could instantly score in like a split second. Where normally, if you have like 50 points is usually the cap on what you get at the end of the game. It would take a full, like, you would have to stand there for like 5 seconds, and if anyone hit you in those 5 seconds, you would be interrupted. Now, when you hit Zapdos, you suddenly got a bunch of points, even if you hadn't collected 50 up to that point. All points are doubled, so if you go dunk those, that's 100 points. And there's like 5 people on a team, so that's easily 500 points in like that, which means that's enough of a swing that basically the first half of the game essentially didn't matter as far as scoring actual points. And people complained about this for a while. There were like back and forths about whether or not, like, well, the first half of the game does matter, because what you're doing is you're leveling, and if you're not leveling correctly, you're less likely to win the fight that happens at Zapdos. Then there are still mechanics for like that you have to pay attention to, as far as like are you like, are you capturing the bottom, there's like a little, what was it called, Dreadnought. There's a Pokemon there that basically gave everyone on your team extra XP, so it would kind of give you an XP advantage over the other team, and it was very important to fight over that. But the rest of the like fighting over individual points felt what felt like should have been the like main objective of the game felt less important until the very end. And there were issues where like it was, because it's a MOBA, the person who gets the last hit on a Pokemon gets the credit for it. So like if you weren't careful and there was one of the enemy like was still alive and kind of wandering around, they could like snipe Zapdos, and then it would turn completely in the opposite direction. And that felt like, okay, it came down to this one person timing one attack very well, instead of like it came down to like all the other choices that you've made through that match.
Right.
So
the new map,
they've first of all changed the like the structure of the map. It feels a lot bigger, even though they're still using the same like sort of map layout. There's a little bit more room for people to kind of sneak up on other people. There's a lot of more of invasions of the jungle going on, where people before if you're in the jungle, you're kind of safe to kind of ignore the rest of the game and level up by yourself. But now there's a little bit more space to maneuver, and people are chasing other junglers down over the time. They changed the Pokemon that appears in the center at the end of 2 minutes. Like that still happens, where it's like 2 minutes is up, now points are doubled. But instead of it being Zapdos, they put in Rayquaza, which is different legendary. And essentially the power that it gives you is not instant scoring, where you just walk up and you hit the button and instantly all your points go in. They've given you a shield that is a percentage of your health, which allows you to go up and score, and like people can hit you, and if you still have that shield up, that means that you won't be interrupted until that shield is gone. But this is very important because that shield appears the second that Pokemon goes down, and that Pokemon is in dead center of the map, which means from you moving from the dead center to the outer, like to all the points, if the other team is still around, they can, burn away that shield before you even get within scoring distance, So what's changed is like that is no longer a guarantee, where it used to be if you got Zapdos, you were basically guaranteed 100% to have won that match, which means that now everything prior to the last 2 minutes, actually there's a lot more fighting happening over points. It's kind of swapped. It used to be that the Pokemon in the bottom lane that people would fight over, that would give everyone a little bit of extra XP, and it's like, well, the XP is what matters right now because the points won't matter anyways. And in the top one, there was one called what was its name? Rotom. It's a ghost Pokemon, and basically it would kind of walk down the lane. Whoever killed it would walk the opposite way down the enemy's lane, and it would give you that instant scoring. But people saw that as unimportant because, again, scoring before 2 minutes was like nobody cared. Now, scoring before 2 minutes is really important, so that top Pokemon actually sees a lot of play. Like, there's now more choices to be made, if you're going for the top lane Pokemon or the bottom lane Pokemon, like that spawn, like every so often, you're getting a lot more play around all of the map instead of people kind of like turtling up and just leveling for the first 8 minutes or whatever. And it feels like this is the game they meant to make the first time around, and for some reason it just took them a year to be like, okay, let's change things.
Yeah.
But it's really it's become a much more engaging 10 minutes. Like where before it was like a very breezy almost in a different way.
With these map dynamics, is it edging closer to like being what Heroes of the Storm was in the space, as opposed to the big two?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely feels like it's gonna end up taking some of that space. It kind of depends on the it's part of the reason Heroes of the Storm hits also is that there was a big enough fandom around Blizzard games that like people were like, oh yeah, I want to see all these Blizzard characters.
At least that was the theory.
Yeah. So I mean, I do think it hews closer to more traditional kind of cadences of MOBA, where fighting in lane matters. Like there's more of a structure to those early minutes than there used to be. So it could very well. I mean, it's a good direction at least as far as the balance changes that they've made. So it's like it feels like it's in a very healthy spot now. Where before it was like, are they ever going to change the map? It took them a whole year to finally do something about this issue, which was identified pretty early on. But we'll see. It's been a couple months, and so far, the community in general has been like, yeah, this is a much more interesting game now.
Mm-hmm.
You know what else is a game-changing thing to do? Changing the field of view on Isonzo. Just FYI, just to check that.
Can you elaborate on that?
Quick. So it turns out that I may not benefit from a 90-degree field of view in a game like Isonzo, given that so much of it is at extreme ranges. I maybe just don't need to be able to see the entire Alpine range. When I'm fighting, I can't. It might actually be more helpful to be seeing what is in front of me.
You thought about putting like on a VR headset so that you could like stand up from your desk and then also see everywhere around you?
God, I wish, man.
You play
there are
Isonzo
so much of that game is like trying to figure out the exact spot where like standing up from a crouch will like expose you perfectly, and then like crouching will cover you perfectly. So there's a lot of that game is like trying to fine tune exactly where you're standing. Been playing a bit more of that. It is. I'm having fun. I think though my time with it is coming to an end. I'm finding it excessively grindy is part of it. It took me a shocking length of time to unlock hand grenades in this game. Because like there is so it's got like a Battlefield style progression thing where like loadout stuff unlocks, and you start with real locked up like loadouts. Like there's just not much that you can choose from in terms of your kit. And it's not just a matter of leveling up your overall character or your class profile, but it seems like there's like challenges that you have to fulfill in order to get like some of the unlocks. So before you could get the hand grenades, not only do you have to be a certain level, but then once you achieved the level, you needed to go around bandaging people with bandages and basically play medic. And like, you know, I can sort of see where like, yeah, it's easy to play the game. This is not really a game where like death is so fast that being a healer is not totally useful in that way, right? It's just like you'll stand up, you get killed. If you've taken multiple hits and you're bleeding out, like chances are you're not going to be alive much longer, and anyone trying to help you out is probably going to get got too. And so it's just like one of those things where I am now just having to play in a way that makes no real organic sense, just so I can get what I really need, which is grenades, because so much of this game, like you're running into a trench or a bunker full of dudes. You're all carrying bolt action rifles. The only way to like even the odds of that is to throw a grenade in ahead of you and follow it in. And so if you don't have that, you kind of just have to wait for other people to show up who have spent that time. So that's like one thing's kind of putting me off it. And two, it is possible that Battlefield 1 is like, whoa, World War I aesthetics. Cool, right? And they are. But it is also like we're still going to have submachine guns and support weapons, all this stuff. We're
still gonna have fun though.
Yeah, we're gonna be a shooter. You know,
we're gonna do the stuff you want to do. Like, like it's not fun to actually be in World War I. So like, you know, you get the cool uniforms.
But what if you're running around trench with a sawed off double barrel shotgun? That sounds pretty neat, right? Yeah, and so like that's how that game rolled. This is a lot like Battlefield 1, and like it has a lot of the good things about it, but then it's just got that little bit of like, but we're gonna be realistic. And what that means is a whole lot of, you know, officers' whistles blow, people go charging out into no man's land, everyone starts getting worked. And then you're like, well, what's going to make the difference here? People calling in artillery strikes and like tear gas and shit. That's what's going to turn this. And you start to get the sense of like, in a way, I don't get the sense in Hell Let Loose. There's times when I'm playing this where I'm like, I am basically cannon fodder in a little like tactics game. The officers on each team are playing against each other, and the rest of us are there to provide cool World War I flavoring.
I was gonna say, last time you talked about the feeling that occasionally you were like getting on a useful flank and like really like biting into enemy lines and that feeling. Do the officer abilities have they started to completely undercut that feeling of like, I'm a little rat and I'm in your pocket and I'm ruining your day? Because it's like I'm a little rat, like, but like you just got hit with a nuke.
There's so many times where you feel like, okay, I'm doing good work, I'm in a good position here. And then artillery just starts landing, and it like and like a lot. There's a lot of it. These are not like, these abilities are necessary to break the game's tendency towards stalemate. Like I think in terms of that, the balance is okay. But yes, it does mean there's a lot of times where what you are doing just kind of ends up feeling a bit mooted by the fact that the officer can come here and like, okay, this area is uninhabitable. This area, there's going to be no lines of sight. This area, like, and when you're not in that zone, it can feel a bit like, okay, I'm here being a little foot soldier, but there's one sniper on the enemy team that just has an amazing field of fire and is like not missing. And so like a huge section of our position that we're supposed to defend is basically uninhabitable because nobody can hit this guy. He's like he is literally like a tiny little pixel in the distance. He can be spotted multiple times, but nobody can seem to hit him. And so it's like, unless your team has another sniper who can like walk over here and do that counter snipe job, your respawns are basically just to become like target practice for that guy. And like, I don't know. It's weird. Like there's there's still like decent fun to be had with the game, but like I just sort of see my time with it ending, because like I don't think I'm going to invest the time to unlock more of the fun kit. And just the overall structure of the game doesn't seem like it is all that much fun to play in every class. Whereas like Hell Let Loose, I consistently felt no matter what class I was playing, I was doing cool stuff.
Everyone just needs to take the Titanfall approach. Just take the Titanfall approach. Let people be the cool officers and the cool sniper, and then just have the little foot soldiers be NPCs. It's fine.
Yeah.
You can have a foot soldier player class.
Yeah.
Go for it. They can be sick as shit. Make them sick as shit. Just like there is a middle ground here where you get that authentic experience. And you don't make it a horrible slog for everyone, but like Slur Jeff, who's sitting with his like really good rifle on top of the hill.
Well, and that's the other thing is I like the community. I think in part because of just the way the game's dynamics are, chat's not a happy place. Because even if the game's good, like even if you're in a good game, like there's somebody having a miserable time and just starting to lose their shit. And I think the game is built to make you lose your shit.
So is this expressed in the normal? I can't imagine the normal gamer bro is the kind of person who is playing this. So what does it mean for someone to lose their shit in this game? What is the how is this expressed?
Oh, it's just standard. Like it's like this game's balance is a fucking joke, man. Like this is no like there was one guy who. Like I guess, you know, he knows whereof he speaks because he was posting crazy numbers in terms of like he was an officer. He was just like murking my entire team. And he's like, man, this game sucks. He's like, there's just no, he's like, it takes nothing to do this. Like, this is the most like this game is just randomness, like pure randomness in terms of what's going on. And people are like, you're just being a hater, man. Like it's it's not the game's fault that you suck. And I'm like, I tab over the score sheet and he's like, he does not suck. I'm looking at him. It's like this guy, like
Game
this guy
MVP.
is single-handedly dismantling our team. But like, so the way it manifests is like there's people who are just like, I can't handle the way this game is structured. This is fucked. And then you got the stands who are like, I just love that I'm playing my World War I game. Look what a cool setting this is.
Well, that's my like on like the broader of what this game is trying to achieve. I mean, from a certain angle, the fact that it feels completely random, and you're just an ant on a hill to be squashed, certainly feels to line up with what it would be more, you know, if it's going for realism, like that's probably more what your experience would be like if you happen to unfortunately participate in this endeavor in real life. Does not necessarily make it conducive to a quote unquote fun experience. And so it seems like one of the things you're identifying here is a game that is, you know, trying to go for a more realistic bent. Is it a design issue or do you feel it's fully intentional and designers are sitting there going, yeah, this is supposed to feel kind of shitty and weird?
I think designers are definitely going for it. What I'm curious about is how much of this is also a community that didn't want to be moved on from the previous games. You know, this is game 3 in this series. And so I'm wondering if there's also a bit of, hey, we got Verdun to a good place, or we got Tannenberg to a good place, and like it all just worked. The mechanics and the setting like worked together well. And here, it isn't clicking as much. I don't know. For me, it kind of just seems like the game does what it says on the tin, and does it decently. And just some people are kind of losing their patience with the pros and cons of the choices they've made. Yeah, and I can see where they're coming from. Like, this is probably why I'm bowing out of this game, is in part because like I'm not fully bought in on some of the experience they're selling. And you know, there's games that I think do a better job of giving you a sense of scale of your own smallness on the battlefield, the sweep of the entire thing, but don't necessarily turn into these sorts of meat grinders, which even Battlefield 1 in places turned into that. And I guess, you know, maybe that ultimately is, you know, this is a game with a fairly low player count. Not player count, but like, I think 48 people is the max in a battle. Hell Let Loose, I want to say, is like 64. Might be 100. Yeah, I actually think it's 100. And so what How Let Loose can get away with is those battlefields are huge. Like those maps go on forever. Whereas here, they're kind of small matches, and it's two teams effectively attacking each other across a very wide alley, but it is still kind of an alley. And that's and that maybe is what is starting to get to me, certainly, and maybe what's getting to other people. But you know, I mean, I still like I've had my fun with it. I think it is a game worth checking out. I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm at the point now where I'm like, I can just see that like we're approaching the terminus of my time with the game. Patrick, you we didn't get to this last week. You've been playing a game, Desta.
Yes, this is the new game from the folks behind was it Mountain Monument Valley, and a game that I adored from 2 years back, Alba, a wildlife adventure game about kind of exploring an island and planting trees. It was the first game I played from start to finish with my kid, and I'd highly recommend going back and checking that out. It started as a Apple Arcade game and then came to, I think, pretty much everything at this point. And so this studio has, a new game called Desta, The Memories Between. It is currently available only through the Netflix app. You can get it on your phone and you know, tablets, and presumably on Android as well. But it is currently, I think, buried is the appropriate term, because I don't think people are going to the Netflix app to see what games like this. There's this communication issue that. Go ahead. It's
nearly impossible to find them. It feels like I went into the app when you said that. I was like, okay, great. I'll go download it. And like, there's kind of a section where you can see all of the like different, genres, right? But in that list, there's no games. I just have to keep scrolling past the like homepage until suddenly one of the little like crossbars in Netflix was like, we have games, by the way. Like, I'm sure there must be some other way to get to the games page, but it's not obvious.
Because this was just like, I was given an invitation to play, so I haven't gone through the actual formal process of downloading it like the average person would. But I believe I went this came up with Into the Breach as well, where, finally, they've made what makes a ton of sense. Like as soon as Into the Breach came out, boy, this game would be pretty cool on a phone or a tablet. And then they did it with Netflix. And great, like if that allows the budget for you to pull it off, like that's cool. Except that I remember, so I think they are accessible if like you're in like the App Store and doing a search. But if I remember correctly with Into the Breach, 'cause I remember seeing a screenshot of this shared on Twitter. If you searched for Into the Breach, it didn't come up. If you searched for Netflix Into the Breach, it came up. And so like super goofy sort of stuff. Like some of this is, you know, tied up in like the archaic and controlling and monopolistic rules that Apple has for how their store runs, right? Like it's back when Microsoft wanted to run cloud stuff through the App Store. They said, let us put a cloud app and then people can sign in and access their games. And Apple said, no, if you want to do this, you will put out a Master Chief Collection app, a Halo Infinite app, a Gears of War app, and then you will sign in individually. And Microsoft said, no, we'll just figure out how to run it through the web browser, which they did. So anyway, this is all just to say there is an increasing library of frequently quality games that are kind of like in this Netflix ecosystem as they throw another Hail Mary. Like, you know, a company that's having business problems, the thing they should do to try and find some proper footing is invest in video games, which are quick turnarounds. As we were talking at the top of the show, famously easy to put together teams and just have everything work out long term. You're good to go. You just make a video game. And so Netflix they just bought a studio. I mean, they're doing stuff. So anyway, Desta is Desta, The Memories Between. The shortest explanation of what it is it's a tactical dodgeball game in which you are also emotionally trying to work out the complicated feelings you have about the passing of your father and how that's fractured a bunch of the relationships you have in the town that you're coming back to visit for the first time in a long time. Like the setting is you've come back, your dad passed away some time ago. It kind of broke you. You left and sort of left all your relationships as they were, pissed off a lot of people in the process. And then when you come back, you're not quite sure how to get back on the footing with like your mother, like friends, other people in your life. And so the game's setup is that you go to sleep, and then the tactics part is you working through your subconscious.
Wait, is Dream Dodgeball?
Yeah, like you're working like the dreams of your subconscious, working out how you should talk to the people in your life to hopefully repair the relationships that you have left kind of fractured and on pause.
Processing trauma is the dodgeball of the heart. I'm always saying this.
Yes.
My therapist told me that the other day. I cried.
Preemptively having conversations with other people, that is an anxiety that I can relate to 100%.
Well, wasn't that the whole premise of the show that everyone really the
rehearsal?
The Mulaney, or not Mulaney, the
Nathan
HBO show, the rehearsal.
The rehearsal.
Yes. And so I don't know how well that stuff works. It's pretty flimsy and loose, is what I would say. It is not treating it super heavy, but I will say it comes across more as window dressing than I would like. But what I will say is the tactics part, which is what you're going to spend most of your time interacting with, is like really neat and interesting. You start out with just sort of like one character on the board. You're moving them across a grid, and you then pull your finger back, which obviously feels like very good on like a touch screen, and you are flinging, I guess, a dodgeball. I don't. Maybe they gave me like a proper noun at some point. That's like a
dream
what
orb.
Actually, a dream orb or something. I don't know. But like for all practical purposes, you are throwing a dodgeball, and so you know that comes with all the things that you can imagine, where you can fling that off of the side of walls. There are like these great moments where the balls appear like when you start when you get dropped into an arena, you don't start with one. They're like laid out on the map as like ammunition, and they don't break. They are just like a constant source of a currency that the player can grab and that enemies can also grab. But they have physics associated with them. And so like, for example, one of my favorite things to do is to maneuver my character right in front of somebody, just dead ass right in front of them. And if I line the shot up correctly, it doesn't always work because it's finicky in the way that it should be for a game that is physics based. If I throw it at them, the ball will just bounce back to me. And so then I could just hit them again. Or there are like powers that are chain based. So let's say you've got someone, like someone's maneuvering around the corner on them. They don't have a ball to toss, but you you have a character with a teleportation power. So you can teleport your ass over to one of the balls, then whip it across the screen so they can catch it. And they've got one more like action point left. And so even though they aren't anywhere near the ball, you can use the other powers to set them up, toss that shit across the way. If you're lucky, maybe you've got a perk that like adds an extra damage attack, like on a throw. Like there are ones that play off of like, hey, you actually want to spend some time like tossing this between our friends in a circle before you like whip it at like a more powerful enemy. So all that stuff. Oh, go ahead, Ren.
Oh, and that just all of that represents when you go to the group chat and you're like, "Hey, I'm about to text my ex. Can we workshop this message real quick? Can we like as a team kind of work on this one before I throw this dodgeball?" Exactly.
And we find out in the group text one of them has a green bubble, and we're all upset about it. And so I have not died yet, and that is where I'm not able to fully comment on. What I have seen to be like the main criticism of this game in some of the reviews that I read was that it's also a roguelike. And part of the way that works is that when you die, or fail a scenario, you go back to the start. And this isn't a game in which you're getting choices as you are going through the setup again, where it's like, hey, I'm going to go down a different path. Like I'm going to go to a storefront, or I'm going to go to a boss battle. Like the things we've come to expect for roguelikes to sort of like mix up the notion that you're going through a lot of content that you've seen before or scenarios that are slightly tweaked. The way it expresses itself here is that the upgrades to health and movement, like that allow you to like obviously take more hits, move more spaces. Those are continuous. So you are leveling that up as you're completing scenarios, and that stays constant. What you lose are sort of like the powers and perks that are randomized based on your progression. And so you can upgrade those, and I believe those upgrades for those specific perks will stay over time. But otherwise, like finding them, you know, is a roll of the dice. And there's a bunch of them. There are like potentially like 24 that you can get. And the criticisms I've seen, and I can already see how this would be true, is that we've kind of like I've talked about this before when I bump up against like roguelite structures, in which I think the games would benefit from just being in a more like sort of like traditional sort of like straightforward narrative and level design. This game does not seem to reward or feel rewarding upon like revisiting and like rerunning through, other than hopefully getting sorts of powers that maybe make the individual scenarios feel more dynamic and interesting. Like as I'm playing at the moment, I think what it's like halfway through would be the arc of the game. There's like nothing in the combat that made me think what I'd really like to do is like do this all over again. I'm really enjoying what's here, but I would rather it was like 50 hand authored levels that I'm going to spend 8 to 10 hours going through, rather than being subjected to the idea that, well, when I have a slip up because I just don't have enough health and action points from leveling up to like make it through whatever the game's cap is going to be, we'll just run through all that stuff again. And so I can't speak to whether like the randomized skills will make that interesting, but I can already see that being an issue for the game on subsequent runs.
I find it appropriate that the most normal person on this podcast is like, I'm just built different and haven't died in the emotional processing video game. I would simply be built different and successfully dodge all of the dodgeballs and navigate every social situation with perfect grace and precision.
But it speaks to if the game, I feel like the game should have kicked my ass a little bit more at this point, right? Like purposely there should be, if you're going to whenever I've played any of these, right? Whether it's, you know, even the ones that I really like, Hades, Spelunky, most recently Shovel Knight Dig, you die pretty quickly. So the game can explain to you, you don't get attached to any of this. Like you are going to run into like arbitrary or knowledge-based ceilings, and then you're going to go back to the start, and then you're going to have to start fresh. What's happened, and I saw this sort of like consistent criticism of the game from other folks. So I was trying to figure out if it was just me. It's like, no, you can have like really early on, like a really long run where you're like, I think I'd rather just finish this. Like, let's just keep going. And so I'll have to report back on whether like how that feels on the second or third run. But it's like, I played the game for 2 hours. I think like a run is probably 3 to 4, if done like fully through. I feel like I wanted the game to push back on me a little more forcefully at this point to ensure that like I'm understanding like what the loop is and how I'm gonna engage with it.
So currently the game's available on Netflix.
Yeah.
The most notable ones are Desta and Into the Breach.
And I think they just added Oxenfree. I think Oxenfree is also
okay, and Oxenfree. Okay, got it. That breaks the pattern that I was noticing, which is that it seems like they are doing.
This is someone at Netflix is just super into tactics games and is just
super
laundering
into tactics roguelikes.
Yeah. I mean, just to some sense, that makes an Oxenfree makes less sense than like what's going to get you to open the app and engage with the brand is something that like is repeatable.
You're
like,
going to keep coming back to
that makes more like Oxenfree is a more disposable. But then again, Netflix, you could argue their entire business model is on rickety foundation because it's on that everything is disposable and meant to be consumed as though you're at a buffet as soon as possible, and then you search for new content. When a roguelike is a more like, well, things are being like, you know, the traditional release model of a thing a week, and you slowly enjoy it over time. So I think there are a couple more games in there, but those are the ones that come to mind at the moment. And Into the Breach, if you haven't played it and you have a Netflix sub, like that's an excellent fucking game that is worth checking out. And so I think Desta is, I don't know if it's an excellent fucking game, but it's interesting. I like that Us Two Games as a studio, you know, essentially they've done at this point, Assemble with Care, which is like a really cool, like kind of puzzle game where you're like interacting with objects and like kind of flipping and opening things. You know, Alba, and then both Monument Valley games. Like, it's a real wide range of stuff that they're doing. And so the fact that this game, even if I think the roguelite stuff maybe doesn't fit as well or doesn't turn the screws, like, they have a cute aesthetic. And I've to some degree, I can almost get the sense that, well, boy, we can't be too mean to the player. Look how beautiful and wonderful. And like, also, this character is working out their issues with the people in their life. We can't kill them in the second stage and make them feel like shit. So they can, you know, like, to some degree, I wonder if like their aesthetic works against what would be best for the game's challenge curve. I don't know if that's, you know, whether that is true or that is just, this is their first time building one of these, and it's not, you know, that comes with its own challenges. But I give them a lot of credit for taking another, like, this is not what you would have expected from the folks that made Alba. Like, there's no coherence to the studio's design ethos other than we're going to make cute, charming games that surprise you. And that's a pretty cool ethos in and of itself.
It does seem like there's a missed opportunity for, you know, if you're not doing well, though. No one says Dream Dodgeball has to be a healing process. Like, if you get pretty real in there.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
Just reboot,
like, I mean, like,
just restart, and you can do it better next time.
No, like, you know, there are no choices. Like, there's no branching narrative or you choosing how is this character going to engage with the people they have, you know, harm. I want to be careful, like what you imply with the word harm, because like with like your best friend, who is the first character you pick up, who then becomes a part of your team, and you can have up to 3 players on the board at once. And then as you get further on and unlock more people, those become folks with different skill sets that, you know, you can swap in based on your preferences and the perks you're getting as you progress. You know, with your best friend, like, but the game implies like, well, your dad died, that kind of messed you up, and you just ghosted the person who was your best friend your whole life. And the game's resolution for that is, I mean, we were besties once. Sorries? Okay, we're besties now. And I'm like, I don't know if that's how I would feel. Like, the game implies that there would be, not darker, but like that it's probably something that should be treated a little more seriously, and it's like pretty flippant about the emotional categories that it's playing in. And so I don't think that, I think it's just sort of it feels a little odd and dissonant in a way that there could be more done here. But also I don't know if that would work against like the roguelike structure. It's like, hey, you really fucked this person up. You caused them serious trauma by the way you just left them. Yeah, you were going through your own shit, but then you just left them behind. Like, not cool. But also, do you want to like be reminded of that like the 7th time you're going through the game? Like, maybe not.
The end of the game is you wake up, grab your bags, load them back in the car.
Oh,
well, I mean, there is a dark version of the ending, which is that this character works out all of their issues, quote, their issues with everyone in their life in their subconscious, but never does it out in the real world and goes, I feel great and free. Time to go back to New York City. God, I hope that's the ending now.
Oh, well, let us know once you see it.
And it is. It's just one last note is that it will leave the Netflix app. Like it is coming to. It's already got a listing on Steam, and I believe it's coming to Switch later as well. So if don't have a Netflix sub, don't want to deal with all that, you'll be able to pick it up elsewhere down the line.
Ren, what have you been into lately?
I played through The Fridge is Red recently, which is a short horror anthology by 5-Word Team.
Spooky season is here, baby.
Spooky season is here.
What is the spooky season here?
Well,
Ren?
The spooky season is here. The spooky season is here competently. For context, 5-Word is also the team behind 2019 1-bit RTS, which I've been meaning to play for a while, Death Crown. That is the team behind Death Crown, a game people really liked. And The Fridge is Red is a short horror anthology of like 6 smaller games, all of which kind of combine to create a full narrative. I like the PSX horror aesthetic a lot.
Me too.
I'm a big fan of it. I think that low poly 3D is extremely evocative and has a real talent. Low poly and low resolution 3D has a real talent for evoking dream spaces. It is such a quick shortcut to making you feel like you are in a world that operates on logics you will never understand, or will create logics that you do understand and then break them immediately. The Fridge is Red is great at that. It is excellent at making spaces feel appropriately dreamlike. And then it asks you to solve puzzles or get chased by a guy, and you're like, I truly don't want to be here.
Yeah, but they don't make Silent Hill games anymore, and so someone has to include the parts of Silent Hill that no one really likes. I mean, they try to justify them, but like this is like, I mean, it's not just Silent Hill. Resident Evil does this as well, but this is more, I more closely associate, like Resident Evil's puzzle aesthetic and design is goofy but straightforward, right? It's like find 7 animal medallions, but you're just finding a medallion and just putting it into a thing, and then it rotates and you get a shotgun. Whereas Silent Hill is esoteric and weird, and the logic is loose, and not even by dream logic standards. It is just like, I would rather look up a walkthrough.
Right, exactly. And that's the problem that the Fridge is Red finds itself in. But when it is operating on dream logic, the game is excellent. The third level takes place in a hospital. And you're going through this hospital. You are trying to get to your wife's hospital room. And to do this, you have to navigate.
Loss?
Incredible. Incredible.
Jesus Christ.
Rob.
No, but it is at times goofy. But what you're doing is you're walking through this hospital, and they're like, hey, here is how you get to this. You have to call the oncology department to figure out what your wife's room is. And you start having to go through sequences of hallway after hallway to find different iterations of these same exact rooms to find the pieces of the phone number. So you can call the oncology department and be like, what room is my wife in? And then you go through the hospital. You have to go through this like arcane. It is doing the Lost Woods thing, the Lost Woods Zelda thing, where you are walking through and you have to walk through identical spaces in the right pattern to be able to get to the end of this sequence. And you get there, you get to the room finally, and you're like, there she is. And you are told that she's been moved rooms. And it creates this bureaucratic nightmare that is deeply relatable as someone who's spent a lot of time in hospitals as a patient and as visiting family members. It is getting to the core of what makes hospitals unsettling, dreamlike spaces, and that it feels like that they are always shifting, and 2, they are always shifting in a place where a lot of people are having the worst day of their life. And it hits both of those feelings excellently, and you are getting this sense of moving through a space that does not operate on a logic that you understand and has no interest in operating on a logic you understand, because it is this like weird liminal space. And when the game is doing that, it's excellent. When the game is doing evocative imagery in the second level, which takes place in a office building, and you try to press the button on an elevator, and the button pops out, and an eye is staring back at you from where the button was, and then you have to put the button back in to the eye and then press it. That's excellent. It is unsettling and gross, but in a way that feels earned. I think that like the second level and third levels use their gore very effectively, which is that it is always used in mundane ways. You go through an office building that is alive, and a pipe that would normally be venting steam is venting blood. And like the game doesn't comment on that. It doesn't try to scare you with that. It is just like the building you are in is alive in a way that you do not understand, and that is actively antagonistic to your continued existence. And those moments are excellent. And that's where the Fridge is Red shines. Where it falls apart is those puzzle mechanics I mentioned earlier, and also its desire to thread a narrative to thread the horror narrative of indie horror games for the last like several years, which
Right.
is
Hey, Amnesia came out more than 10 years ago. We're approaching 15 years in Amnesia. The chase stuff was novel then. It does not every game, even Amnesia itself, the most recent sequel, I thought really buckled under its own what used to be really forward-thinking approach to horror, and it has been left behind by games that looked at what Amnesia did and said, like, what else can we do in this space? I mean, like, these games, I have not played this one. I'm looking forward to checking it out. Like, I'm excited for like the avalanche of spooky season, and especially like these low poly horror games that tend to come out around this time. But horror as a genre really struggles with the notion of having confidence in, like, what is the player doing? Like, are we okay just having them explore a space and tell a story? Or will the gamers need something to do? And this is something that horror, like, from the beginnings of like trying to scare people in video games, usually they go the direction of, well, let's give them a gun, and that solves the problem. Like, okay, we can scare them, but then we have solved what is the player doing and how do they feel as though they are satisfied from the player perspective of, like, they are being something, an arc, something to do as the player. And too many of them fall back on that when they would be stronger, as you're suggesting, just exist in the space, tell your story, and allow the player to direct that experience, instead of relying so much on being chased or having puzzles.
And also the other thing is that, like, tell a story that not everything has to be a metaphor. Like
oh, I'm sorry. Have you? That is like that is
no.
Shitty part of every horror story.
I am getting to a specific thing, which is that I have encountered so many horror games in the last like 10 years that are just like, it's just people just love doing The Shining again. They're just like, what if a dad sucked? And it's like, yeah, man, what if a dad did suck? That's so true. What if you played as a dad who sucked? And thank you for saying that. And it's just that exact narrative of, what if there was a father who was absent and then his wife died and then he neglected his child?
Yeah.
And
horror, I think that so much of this, like, horror is aesthetic first, and everything else second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. And I think you're seeing that repeat in just a new aesthetic, right? Like, this is what makes this genre such a, like, love-hate thing for me, is it gives me so much, but it is so rare to find actual meat on the bone. And that's why you end up chasing, like, that's what things like jump scares fill the void on. Well, we don't have a lot to say here, but we gotcha.
Right. And like the frustrating thing is that, like, the horror in The Fridge is Red isn't the horror of the narrative. Like, it doesn't feel like the horror is what the actions of a bad dad. The horror at its best is the mundane nightmares that people actually have, right? The nightmare of being lost in a hospital, the nightmare of, trying to get out of your office building and dream logic setting in and you can't do it, right? Those feelings come across as, like, kind of disconnected from the actual core horror of, what if there was a guy who sucked? And it's telling the narrative of a guy who sucks through those things, but the actual moment to moment doesn't feel like this conclusion of each story is creating a narrative that feels like a cohesive character arc through play. And that's a bummer. I like weird horror. I like horror that, like, commits to odd aesthetics and, like, quick narratives. And I was really hopeful for The Fridge is Red, and it kind of let me down, while also, I think, at its best being, like, a tremendous tone piece that reminds me of some of the most frightening days of my life, and does so, like, very effectively.
Ren, you should play Fear. First Encounter Assault Recon.
I'll play Fear. I know Fear's whole deal.
Yeah.
Wait.
The ghosts.
What did you just say?
Yeah.
First Encounter Assault Recon. Fear.
First Encounter Assault Recon.
It's a fucking acronym?
Yes, First
Yeah.
Encounter Assault
Dude,
Recon.
the
It's the
periods
name
are
of
on
the
the rise.
organization. It's the name of the organization.
I know nothing about that game. Sorry. It's just
you
like,
should play it too. If you want to see just like a towering achievement in horror FPS.
Is that still going to feel that way?
but also,
I
also
played a few years ago. It's the shooter still feels great.
I've heard it holds up.
the acronym kind of kills it. I feel like that doesn't seem right.
What do you
What
mean?
doesn't seem right?
Say the words again.
First
First
encounter, assault recon.
Assault recon, like that gives me a very different. That does not feel horror game to me. Assault recon, like it feels like I'm playing a Tom.
do you know
Sorry,
what's
no.
Furious?
So yeah, so you're breaching and clearing rooms full of ghosts.
Okay.
That's
Like you
the
get your
video.
little submachine guns.
I guess I'm sorry. Is that ludicrous to you, Kato?
No, just there's something about the power of a gun and being like in an FPS mode of play that kind of
Oh no, I know.
kills horror in some sense to me. But
No, for sure. I mean, that's kind of the joke. Is like that is a game that eventually throws up its hands. It's like, we're gonna throw the ghosts at your face fast, and you just need to shoot them as quickly as possible. And it's like, are you not terrified? It is the entire like psychological horror thing that's been building for across the game. It's like, quick, shoot the ghosts as quick as you can. But ultimately, that too is, what if a dad was bad?
Listen, man,
Damn.
hey, people,
No hope
people,
for me.
people who make horror games, maybe let a woman write one of those from time to time. Just here or there.
Let the woman be bad for
Just
once.
yeah.
No,
Let it be her
no,
fault.
no.
Wait, no, this isn't what we're.
I don't want
Is
to.
that
I don't
what
want
we're
to
saying?
hear. This sounds like we're opening a door to let mommy be bad, and we must
Yeah.
not.
Let
We must
mommy be
not.
bad.
Stop making games about parents being shitty. Any other horror subject, I'm fucking begging you.
Mama.
All right. So we should take a quick little dip into the question bucket before we go. Michael G writes, "Dear Waypoint crew, first time, long time. I have a question for you. If you woke up one day with the eldritch godlike power to infinitely materialize a single type of baked good, cookies, croissant, bread loaves, etc., what would it be and why? Additionally, how would you use your newfound power? Open a bakery with shockingly cool ovens? Save the world somehow? Thanks for all the great work you do and keeping me company on long nights under the tepid California moon. Wishing you the best, Michael."
Can we just take saving the world off the table so we can make this like? I
Yes.
want this to be I want this to be self-indulgent.
Okay, so we're not doing a global scale loaves and fishes
Boring.
thing. Yeah.
let's just assume that
I
everyone
want this to
does
be a
that.
selfish power.
Everyone does that
Yeah.
anyways. What else?
Yeah,
do you do with the
there's
power?
someone down the street that said, "I'm gonna go solve world hunger with this power," and then the rest of us are allowed to do what we want.
Wait, sorry, I want to get into this with Patrick now. Patrick, what in this situation, what percentage of the world population now has bread powers? Because I feel like that changes my
This is
answer.
like the leftovers, but it's like
Maybe everyone gets a food power, but like that's I don't know.
the leftovers.
Doesn't that solve world hunger on its own
just-
if everyone has a food power?
Because if a lot of people get the bread powers, I'm not going to go for a common bread. Listen, Baguette Jeff's down the street. I got that guy. Like I know he's already got it covered. What's an obscure pastry
Okay,
that
I got
need?
it. I know mine.
Rob, hit me.
Danish braid. It is one of many braided pastries. It's very, very good. And I can make it. It's just very, very fussy. It's not even that fussy. It's just anything croissants sort of fall into the same bucket, but anything where you've kind of got to fold in a lot of butter and the thing has to rise but chilled like over a long period in the fridge, you start running into just like issues of too much traffic in and out of the fridge. You got to be like, sorry, I need this entire like level of the fridge to be for this thing. But I must have it because here's the thing. Where I grew up, this is something so basic I never imagined it would be regional. But I have not seen it since I left Chicagoland. Used to be a ton of places that would serve pastries that were really simple. They were like basically like braided pastries topped with like white frosting and chocolate chips and like crumble. Really basic thing. Every supermarket had these. And they're so basic, I do not know what they're even called. That's the thing. It's just it's like something so like it was like it's coffee cake. What are you talking about? Like it's a Danish that we got. It's the chocolate chip Danish thing we got. No, that's not like I have not seen it outside the greater Chicago area. And increasingly I do not even see it there anymore because a lot of the like regional grocery chains that like did this have since been bought out by like larger grocery chains that are like national, and they've shut down like the local bakery sections and such. And so I have a yen for a breakfast treat of my youth that is gone. Like when I go back there, like none of the places that used to serve it are still there. And I don't even have like the word for it because it was a basic assumed part of life. Like for 20 years, that was just like walking in a supermarket, get this.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then like in the last 10 years, it's like, where the fuck did this basic thing go? It's not fancy. It's just delicious.
So I
See,
mean,
this is the kind of mundane horror that I wish was more central.
Also, it means a lot to me because my father brought it back from his grocery run.
God damn!
And even when he wasn't happy, it made him happy.
Oh my God.
And so we all had I mean, it is what he would bring home from the pastry runs, from the grocery runs. But yeah, it wasn't like the whole family gathered around the chocolate chip pastry.
So we're saying that this is not just literally bread, but it can also be bread that has shit on it or other things that would make a pastry.
Oh yeah. You
Any
can like
pastry.
because otherwise, yeah, like no, we like
because I was like,
I would even say, do we include pizza on this list, or do we draw the line of focaccia?
No, I
draw the
think
line
we
of
have
focaccia.
Focaccia is
Okay.
well,
but
here's
like-
my question. Oh, please, Kato.
I was just gonna say, like, would an eclair count? Is that
Yes.
too far gone? Is
No,
that
that's
where
a
we
pastry.
like? It's a pastry.
No, and it has to be included because otherwise that would ruin my answer.
Yeah.
So please proceed, Kato.
Okay.
So that's you. You're like
No.
You're,
no.
okay.
Similarly, though, hold on. Millefeuille, also known as a Napoleon, I guess. You all know what these are. They're like these kind of
The little pancake.
layers of phyllo dough with cream, and then more layers. It's called millefeuille because it's 1,000 feuille. I think that's just sheets, I believe, of like dough. It's not really 1,000, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's like a layered dough pastry that I fucking love and is difficult to make, and not a lot of places even make them. There was one spot in Florida where we would get these all the time, and I miss them.
So, Kato, again, growing up in the Midwest, or at least grow up in Chicagoland, the thing is, we had a debased version of this that was like fucking everywhere.
Yeah,
Like it wasn't as this. Like,
Yeah.
is this crisp and like flaky?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So that's the thing. We had like thin layers and stuff, but like it wasn't crisp and flaky. It was more like chewy. But like this thing existed like widespread, and is also kind of bit the dust.
Amazing.
With the consolidation of like grocery chains that are just like, here's some donuts that come from the same like factory. But yeah, this shit looks great.
Yeah.
The most buying a book because I think I could be this person type thing is when I bought a book on Austrian pastry recipes.
Oh my God.
And I was like, I could like, and it's such a serious book. There's like no pictures. It is like
Wow.
it is just a dense like inventory of classic like Austrian pastry
I mean,
recipes.
like, this is how it's supposed to look like.
No,
Nothing to
just like
aim
you should
for.
fucking know. Like there are some pictures in places where like it is really important that you know exactly what you're going for, but for the most part, it's like really dry to the point recipes, and it's like for professional kitchens. And so like I realized this is just, so many recipes are just like, well, of course you have about 3 pounds of cake crumbs lying around that are fresh from your other cakes that you're making
3
every day.
pounds?
This is the thing. I was like, it's like, I think it might be commercial scale, but I'm just reading it and I'm like, so wait, so to make this recipe, it's like step one, open a popular and successful pastry, like pastry and coffee shop.
Yeah.
Step 2, congratulations. Now you have unlocked tier 2 items. That's basically it.
God.
Patrick, you had an answer.
I do. We have like a really good like local donut shop that, you know, does everything from the basics to like, you know, really fancy stuff and everything in between. And I have tried many times, like one of the, you know, I can get stuck in my habits like anything else. And it's like you go there, especially when I'm taking the kids, like get something different, like branch out. Try different stuff. I'm sure these are fantastic too. And every time I don't regret what I got, but I just regret that I didn't get the thing that I wanted. Just like be sad. Like sometimes in life, you just want the thing that you want. You love it. You like it every time. And it's just a really good ass chocolate donut. Just like basic. And what I would want is that probably every morning, that would probably be better. That would be bad for my gut over the long term. But let's say in this hypothetical scenario, these are like, I can do this every day. I'll just start working out more. It's fine. And I would love every morning next to my first cup of coffee is it's a perfect brand new chocolate donut that is like so fresh out that the chocolate is still like sort of like it hasn't settled. Like it would be a little gooey to the touch. Because even if you get there and it's clear, like it's only been sitting out for 20 minutes. Like it's a batch that like, cause they're running through them, especially on a Sunday morning when the churches are coming through and all that stuff. Like it's about as close as you're going to get to, they just made it, but it's still not, they just made it. Yeah. And I would want one of those from like one of those places, just like the perfect chocolate donut every morning next to my coffee, warm to the touch when I go into that first bite. Delicious.
I have a clarifying question about this situation. If you say a pastry object, do you get the variations of that object, or do you just get like its platonic form?
I feel like you get variations, right?
Whoa. Let me tell you the kind of variation I'm thinking. You can tell me if it's a no. If you say pretzels, do you also get pretzel bites?
Like you're saying you're getting a spread of pretzels?
You see my point of concern. Yeah. If you get a delicious soft pretzel, do you also get access to pretzel bites? Because
yes,
I think you got to pick. Yes,
Rob, you think yes?
Yes, but I think I have a reason for this.
Okay, hit me.
If I'm looking at this correctly, it's the pretzel bite is going to be fabricated from making a small twist of similar dough. I feel like I would allow it on those grounds. Although you're just instantiating it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like this is the question. Like, also, can you vary the size of the pastry?
But Ren,
yes.
Are we perhaps just dancing around the fact that you just want pretzel bites and you can top them many different ways, and maybe you don't need the pretzel at all?
But I do love a big pretzel.
I know.
But a pretzel.
But you could have a savory pretzel bite and like scratch the same itch,
and you can get a bunch of them.
Yeah,
you could. I think that the most efficient food vessel ever constructed is the pretzel cup. Cup of pretzel feels like, to me, the peak of human efficiency is put pretzels in cup. Walk around, get on that train. You wait in Boston South Station, and you eat those pretzels out of that cup. Doesn't get better than that. I've decided it's pretzel bites.
It's pretzel bites. I support that. As for what I do with it, I would I'd open a place. I'd be like, I'll bake other stuff. I'll serve other stuff. But sure, I will. Like, I also, ever since I saw the No Reservations episode where Bourdain is in Paris, and like every morning he's like, that episode ends with him doing the morning ritual of like going up to exactly what you described, Patrick. The like, getting there at 6 a.m., sun coming up, perfect warm pastry, cup of coffee. And like, that's just how a ton of people are starting their day. I've been like, I want that life. I want it. And
you want to give that to people in that moment.
Yes, but also I would like it for myself. Like, even if it is the end of the shift for me, right? Where it's like, okay, I've been up since 2:30, but I'm still getting my 6 a.m. coffee and a donut, and like getting a little moment of like solitude and perfection. Like, if I have to build the place myself, I will do it.
Mhm.
To the point where I'm getting dangerously close to a store in the area that I really like is sort of like, I'm not sure if they're going to stay in business, but like they've got a good concept going. Some stuff's coming up. And there's a part of me that's like, how dangerous is small business loan? How dangerous would it be to be like, I'll bet I could run this shit.
Yeah, you know, Rob, everything I've read about loans and mortgages right now, it's a great time. Like the interest rates are just crushing it. Like I think it's a good time to have some money.
It's cool and normal to do what you're suggesting.
Yeah.
I watched The Bear.
Rob going into Yahoo Answers. How is crushing debt formed?
This
is
might be better at I think that's Kiora right now. That might be where you get some.
How do I get the sequel to Debt?
Yeah, I know.
Rob cruising over to Wall Street bets. All right, if I just put a little in here, then I'll feel better about my small business loan.
Rob's gonna get debt so bad that they have to reinvent debtors' prisons just for him.
Wait, reinvent?
Because they're gonna have to explicitly reinvent debtors' prison just for him.
But wait, isn't that kind of a thing where like small business loans, because they want people out there taking those risks, like consumer debt, yeah, they fuck
bankruptcy,
you, they'll
baby.
kill you.
Like that's there for Rob.
Right. This is the thing. Like Biden took bankruptcy away from people who are not like business. Like, sorry, this is not Dark Brandon Biden, but like old like banker senator Biden. Like
Fuck
definitely
off.
worked on a bill that sort of made it harder for people to discharge consumer debt through the bankruptcy process. But like maybe it's different if you're like, I'm going to be a small business owner, the salt of the earth.
Rob, when I
engine
get
of the
my
American economy.
When I get my
that
settlement
famously
from
goes well.
Sonos, I'm ready to invest.
All right.
So, okay, I think I know what I want to do with my powers. I want to be the most popular person in the shitty food social space. I'm talking the train. I am talking.
Damn it.
I'm talking the plane. I am talking a club with too high of a cover charge that doesn't serve food. Can you imagine how quickly you become the most popular person in the room if you are like, everyone is dancing and they're so tired, they get a drink, their tummy hurts, and you're like, what if I told you you could put a pretzel in there to soothe that tummy that you fucked up by dancing? And I can manifest that for you right now. You become the most popular person in the place instantaneously. That is a service I am providing.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Especially like in places where like businesses are shutting down. Like if there's no more like place without food carts or like late restaurants, if you're ever in a place where like the bar's shut down and people are just on their own, like how do I make this pain go away? Bam, there's Ren.
And also, it's such a good social get out of jail free card because you can, instead of having to be like, I'm gonna go take a smoke, you're like, I'm gonna go instantiate pretzels outside.
I gotta run outside. I'll be back in like 10 with pretzels for everybody that works.
I gotta go summon pretzels out there if everyone's cool with that, and everyone's like, yeah, please, no, go. And I'm like, oh, thank fucking Christ, I'm so overstimulated. No one talk to me. Can't talk. Got a pretz.
Our next email comes from Tyler, High Waypoint crew. During the middle of the pandemic that we're still not somehow not out of, and not wanting to subject myself to Texas summers running, I bought an exercise bike and planted it in front of my TV. Recently, the only thing getting me through 2-hour rides are the misadventures of Oberhof Racing and their stalwart king, Santo Parisi, despite the fact I couldn't care less about motorsport. I have 2 questions. What is your go-to media for forgetting your body is straining itself with exercise? Are there any sports you don't like but enjoy the video game equivalent of, or vice versa? Fuck capitalism, go home, Tyler.
I don't do all my exercise I do like 3 to 5 mile runs twice a week. And so that's usually podcasts because they sort of fit like 30, 40 minutes that I'll be out there. And otherwise I do like hits, which are either 10 minutes or 20 minutes. And like those are so physically intensive that you like, there's no like window to watch anything except like whatever squat or whatever that you're doing. But I know, Rob, you've been doing more of the longer distance, like biking stuff. So I presume you're putting something on while you're doing that.
Yes, I am. So the issue is like attention is weird, and this thing, like for instance, like when I was like doing more intensive workouts, honestly, like one of the best things one of the best grooves I ever got on was there was like a 2-year period where I would just do a workout that was basically timed to My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, and like the oscillations of that album were like perfect for like a really great set of exercises.
And that signaled the end of the workout when the album was more or less done.
Yeah, and like
That's
there's
cool.
and it worked great. The problem was I burned out on that album and nothing. I was like, surely I can achieve this effect with playlists. No, not quite. It turns out there is no substitute for all of the lights. That's kind of what we're up against sometimes.
I had a similar sort of thing where I started doing hits because I've mostly ran for like 10 plus years, like 15 plus years now. And it's like, it's just straightforward cardio. And so I need to do something else. And when it gets cold out, my wife will like bundle up and go running in the really cold, as long as there isn't ice to slip on. But I am unwilling to do that. So we got a treadmill for indoors, and I just can't. Part of the reason I run outside is because there's so many distractions. Like running indoors, I find myself just staring at the mile marker.
Yeah.
Like let's just get and I run a much shorter distance because it reminds me of when I was a kid at like the grocery store and I'm just staring at the clock, waiting to get to my lunch break or for my shift to be over. I have a TV in my garage that I can watch, and I'll try and put on like some fun, horror documentary or something to distract me for the 30 minutes. And it's painful. Like running is the thing that comes easiest to me. And it is though it is the hardest thing I have ever done when I have to do it like on a treadmill indoors, as opposed to, out running through a park or something.
I haven't really done like exercise, long term. I exercise, but like long term exercise since moving to New York, because I've just been reestablishing my schedule. But before, I mean, my actual like go to, I'm going to go on a 2-hour walk show was formerly Waypoint Radio, and I'm not fucking ever listening to this shit.
Can't do that shit anymore.
No, I'd rather perish. And so recently, the thing is, I want to start working out more actively, but the problem is, I know what show I would want to listen to, and I know I couldn't do it. I want to listen to Blowback, the Iraq War podcast, and I'm just that's too intensive for my little brain while I'm trying to do the exercise. This is the other problem: is there's a whole tier of podcasts that it's like, sorry, I can't have it just lurking in the background, the edge of consciousness, like I sort of dip in and dip out. Yeah, that's another problem. I gotta hear about Chalabi's griffs. Sorry.
I'm like on the other side of this of like, I require a thing that is specifically directing me to get through exercise. Like Ring Fit at home, but also like for a brief moment, I did that Zombies Run app just to try to run.
I used that early when I was trying to like crack running and pacing and breathing, and I like you needed. I was like, well, maybe narrative,
right? Something
like,
to like.
It was super useful for like 2 months, and then I kind of got bored with the storytelling. It was like, I'm over this, but it really did help me crack like motivation of like, all right, fuck it, I will go two more blocks.
Right. No, totally, and it was really good for that. But then I like just have been mostly sticking to like doing Ring Fit when I can get it in early in the morning. So it's like there's already a thing happening. That is why I'm exercising. So like I don't have a thing that like goes with it aside from that.
So Grimly, so for recumbent bike days, I've fallen down a real bad rabbit hole of car YouTube. I'm just Doug DeMuro. what have you been playing? What have you been driving lately? Tell me about it. Like, tell me about these quirks and features of this car. It doesn't stop there, right? Like, the dude on Auto Trader, Rory. I'm like, yeah, got to hear about all these amazing cars that are not coming to America, because we only buy SUVs and trucks here. It's like, yeah, absolutely. Tempt me with this amazing hatchback that I'll never get to see. But it's all fun, again, like low focus type stuff that's perfect for, if you're just sort of like pedaling away and just trying to like stay in a certain cardio range. Like way less effective for stuff like weights, which like, at least for me right now, requires more of a conscious focus and like thinking about what is the next set. But yeah, so that's where I'm at. Sports that I don't like but enjoy the video game equivalent of. Used to be that would probably be baseball, but I kind of like baseball now. Like I loved MLB The Show, and now but I also just kind of like baseball now. So that doesn't really work. I guess maybe I could try like Ash's cricket and see what happens.
I don't really play sports games. That's my cop out.
Golf.
Yeah.
I am never gonna play. Okay, I do like mini golf. Mini golf is fun, but like golf, any other sort of golf, like I will only ever play video game golf. I will never actually go out and hit a fucking. It would be impossible for me, probably. I'm already bad enough at mini golf.
Yeah.
Gotta go to Top Golf. We could just they alleviate the fact that if you don't hit it that hard or get under it, you're up 4 stories, and so it's still gonna go pretty far. If you've ever seen one of those, they're pretty neat.
The first time I tried to golf, my family wanted me to do golf because it was like a family thing, and they were like, "Oh, go golf." The day one of golfing, I learned that we got the wrong-sided clubs for me because I'm ambidextrous, and so we never know which side will be my dominant side until I start doing the thing. And we guessed wrong, and immediately after the first practice, I broke my wrist. That was my golf experience. Was literally within hours of finishing my first golf practice for school, I immediately like broke my wrist, and I was like, the fates have decreed me.
In a different, unrelated manner, you broke your wrist?
Yes. Yeah.
No. Ill portent.
Yeah. I kind of knew golfing wasn't for me. Like when I would, we'd sneak into a public course before it opened, so we didn't have to pay, and just like do horrible things to the groundskeeping there. Just absolutely
Praxis.
Like
monstrous.
Sorry about all them divots. Sorry about that chunk I took out of the 4th fairway. Sorry about all that sand I kicked over the green. Hope everyone has fun today. Good luck. I'm driving out of here at 6 a.m. while the kid is opening the shop, pretending that I was like, I just want to know what time you were opening.
All you gotta do is just like when you make that divot, drop a seed in there. Do some real property damage. Really commit to fucking up that golf course. That's praxis, baby.
And that is a wrap on today's episode of Waypoint Radio. If you want more from Waypoint, you can follow us on Twitter at Waypoint, Facebook and YouTube at Waypoint Vice. You can follow me wrecking the golf course before it opens at Rob Zachney on Twitter. Kato, where can people follow you?
At _Kato_appears.
Patrick.
At Patrick Klepek.
Ren.
At Ren or Raven.
You can also check out what we've published on Waypoint over at waypoint.vice.com. This week you can check out, Ren's piece on The Fridge is Red, sort of talking through that game and getting into some personal experience that sort of informs her experience with the game. Great article, well worth reading. Great compliment to the discussion we had today. And thanks to Waypoint Plus, Kato and I, Kato, how are you holding up? You do seem a bit under the weather. Is Oberhof racing today, or would it be a good day for?
No,
all right,
it's okay.
Oberhof's not going to stay in the garage with some tea.
No. We're good.
Right.
We're good. I'm getting over it. So, it's all vestigial coughs and sniffles. I'm actually okay.
All right, so look out for that on twitch.tv /Waypoint.
That will have already happened.
Yeah, but the VOD will be there.
The VOD will be there.
Unless
But
something
tomorrow
happens.
Tomorrow, there's a thing happening. Tomorrow from when the listeners are listening. Yeah.
Yeah. Just exploring a whole bunch of the Steam Next Fest offerings.
Is that up? It's up, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. All that's happening this morning. And also by the time people listen to this, they'll have time. If you want to send in questions for the next sports pod, this one's going to be bleak.
We got Patrick. I think we need to do another vibe check where we pick the rest of the season for the Bears because I think my answers have changed.
Okay.
I don't think we're a 9-8 team.
But wouldn't it be more fun if we don't change it and we're just forced to live with those?
That's true. That's true. But
so if you're listening to this, you can. Let me pull up the phone number as well. You can either write in to gamingadvice.com, just put the subject title sports, put that exclamation mark in there. Really work for it. And if you want to leave a voicemail, 224-707-1561. We'll be recording that Tuesday night. Can't wait. Good thing we committed to here, Rob.
We knew what we were doing. We knew what we were getting into.
You forget for a whole year, and then you just get to experience it all over again.
Well, especially there's nothing more dangerous than an upset win at the start of a Bears season.
Yes,
that's
don't give me hope. I'd rather just exist in the abyss.
And that abyss is made possible by our Waypoint Plus listeners. So you'll have the sports podcast to look forward to this week. I think this week we are also recording on John Carpenter's Escape from New York. So you can send some questions in about that as well. We might actually read them before we're recording, though the timing will be tight. If that sounds good, or you just want more Waypoint, you go to waypointplus.com, subscribe. That gives you access to our premium feed and an ad-free version of these podcasts. And you're also helping support Waypoint and everything else we do here. You can also go a step beyond that and don your Waypoint merchandise by going to waypointgeneralstore.com. Our theme music is by Bowen. The track is Miss You off the EP Pale Machine. Learn more at waypoint.zone/BOEN. For now, we are calling time on this Monday recording, Tuesday show. We'll talk to you again on Friday. Until then, fuck capitalism. Go home.